Hi, my name is Rob, and today I will be talking about greenhouse gas inventory reports and that the provincial government is going to close bike lanes or not allow future bike lanes to be installed in municipalities. Uh, First, I'll talk about the greenhouse gas inventory reports in the city of Peterborough, and then I'll talk about bike lanes as well as talking about the environmental items on the environmental registry of Ontario that may interest you, as well as potentially other topics, provided that there's time. Let's see, I'm just going to switch the videos. Oh, yeah, so the first item is a climate incentives update. This is from the Peterborough Environmental Advisory Committee. I want to make sure I have the right one. And this report was made on September 18th, 2024 in the city of Peterborough. I thought I had highlights. Okay, I do. Okay. So this is climate initiatives update. I'll start with this. Though they include a board-friendly Peterborough, installation of board anti-collision deterrents, um, and they're installing that in the Peterborough Museum and Archive, Art Gallery of Peterborough, and the Kingsman Civic Centre. And they will be applied to windows and glass doors deemed to be at risk to reduce the likelihood of board collisions. There's the Carbon Disclosure Project, an annual submission. And this is a report on community and corporate mitigation and adaptation measures, as well as local climate vulnerabilities. And there will be a report in December. There's a draft report, Pathway to Net Zero 2050, and that is scheduled to be released sometime in September. So likely, let's see, probably this week or on the 30th. I'll have to look at the calendar, the schedule, if it hasn't already. Community greenhouse gas inventory, that will be like the big topic of today's episode of Environmental Soup. And it says that emissions have decreased by 107,681 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2022, or 18% from the 2011 baseline. The stagnation in community transportation emissions due to waning COVID-19 restrictions, coupled with the high fuel costs in 2022, were determined to be the primary drivers of low emissions. So COVID-19 had a big impact. Um, and as the restrictions from COVID-19 have been lifted, emissions are increasing as a result of that. Um, I, I don't think that the pandemic is over, as I know a lot of my some of my friends have still been getting COVID. Um, but that's another discussion. Um, so there was a 17% reduction in 2030 from 2011 levels through existing planned programs and policies that will be available to support. They'll likely achieve 17% reduction by 2030. Um, through planned programs and policies. This is short of the 45% reduction that the city is wanting. Um, and then there's the corporate greenhouse gas emissions. They declined by 2,982 tons of carbon dioxide in 2022, or 12% from the 2011 baseline. Grid emissions are impacting. Increases in natural gas have been increasing the greenhouse gases, but there was there was projection that greenhouse gases will be down 34% by 2030 due to the mitigation of methane emissions from waste management facility landfill as a result of the source separated organics program, facility retrofits, and the transition of the fleet to low carbon vehicles. And the report does say why climate change mitigation matters. Well, not this one. I think the next one says that. And then there's like some other updates. I didn't really talk about those. And let's see. I think it's this one. Oh, I guess I'll transition the screen. Oh, I want to. I forgot to go to this between each section. News item. Okay, so I am at a different screen, and this is. Oh, where am I down now? This is the climate. Oh, I think I'm at the. Okay, I'm on the same page. Okay, so here it is. The community sector greenhouse gas emissions inventory and update. And this was submitted on September 18th, 2024 to the Peterborough Environmental Advisory Committee. And then they have a background. Community sector greenhouse gas emissions generated from community-wide sources in 2022 compared to the 2011 base year are comprised of residential buildings, commercial buildings, industrial buildings, and transportations. And then annual emissions grew by 1% from 2022 levels. And then community sector emissions are projected to decline by 17% from 2011 levels by 2030. The goal is 45% reduction, so it's not anywhere close. They have a home energy efficiency program, green economy, Peterborough, and federal policy to shift transportation sectors towards electric vehicles will help address this. And then some of why climate change matters. They gave the example of the 2023 forest fires, which impacted Peterborough. Forest fires are more likely to occur with climate change impacts. And then there's a difference between weather and climate. Climate is long-term. Weather is a specific event. So the 2023 wildfire impacted air quality, and that was a high risk level of 9 on the Air Quality Health Index. Previous summers recorded multiple Air Quality Health Index maximum highs of 4 or moderate risk for a few days a year, so that's a significant increase. They say that there was a 2023 storm dropping 88 millimeters of rain in 4 hours. 70 millimeters fell in a single hour. The monthly mean rainfall is 74 millimeters. To give a sense. And then there's been other storms throughout the year. Throughout the years, 2022, the derecho, which resulted in a large power outage. That was not in. I don't think that was included in this report. And they say that there was warm winter temperatures, which was significantly higher than the 30-year mean winter temperatures. And they don't say this in the report, but wildlife is negatively impacted by less snow cover available, or they're negatively impacted by the warmer temperatures. Like maple syrup is an example. So maple trees can only produce syrup under a narrow range of temperatures. That's not mentioned. It does say that there's less natural gas because of warmer winters. There was record-breaking summer rainfall in southern Ontario. And then the City of Peterborough declared a climate emergency in 2019, September 23rd, September 2019. The City of Peterborough, they say that the City of Peterborough does not have direct control to reduce community sector greenhouse gas emissions generated in Peterborough, and that municipalities can influence only 50% of the community's greenhouse gas emissions through policies, programs targeted at land use, transportation, water, and waste management. What did I say about this? 2022 is the official reporting year, while 2023 is presented as projected trend, and it will be revised with certified emissions factors in the following community greenhouse gas emissions report. And then they used Environmental Insight Explorer, which is provided by Google, to aggregate vehicle movements using the cell phone location services of drivers. And then they used other tools as well. And then there was a graph in this report I found by looking at the agenda of the Environmental Advisory Committee in Peterborough. And they said that the decline in greenhouse gas emissions is consistent with the residual impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which was claimed to be from March 2020 to May 2023. So next year, they will still point to the pandemic. The final provincial lockdown was issued in January 2022. And then they're saying that there was a higher cost of gasoline, and there was a shift. The shift to electric vehicles only marginally contributed to low gasoline fuel use due to EVs only accounting for 0.69% of all registered vehicles in the city in 2022. So there's a long way to go for electric vehicles. Natural gas is used primarily source of emissions for stationary buildings, encompassing 86% of the total in 2022. Let's see here. I also highlighted, I think I highlighted some other stuff. Yeah, so those comparisons of cities, Peterborough generated 5.8 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per capita in 2022, down from 7.6 per capita in 2011. Peterborough ranked lower than most reporting municipalities in greenhouse gas emissions per capita, especially against the provincial average of 10.4. And there's you can see on a graph on figure 7 that there is Ontario 10.4, Peterborough 5.8. Peterborough, and Kingston is the same. That's and then community sector emissions are expected to trend back towards the business as usual trend line. So it's decreasing compared to business as usual, but it's not going to reach the 45% pathway. And as there's only about 10 minutes remaining, I will switch to talking about the bikes. So there is new legislation in Ontario which will cause bike lanes to be not installed. And I wrote an article in 2021, A Climate Emergency with the Side of Medium Transit. And then it was reported that in 2006, 87% of citywide trips involved a call. And as of 2021, 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation nationally. And I'll highlight the things about bikes. Council at the time did not change its mind on investing a greater amount towards bike lanes. There was a choice between 160 versus 80. 160 kilometers of bike lanes throughout the city. Councillor Akapo wanted the city to invest in 160 kilometers of bike lanes throughout the city instead of 80 kilometers, which was approved as it was low-hanging fruit in reducing climate emissions and would demonstrate climate action. But 160 would have been a lot better. Councillor Kim Zippel pointed out that the 160-kilometer option was recommended by the Peterborough Environmental Advisory Committee, and that 16,500 tons of CO2 would be saved compared to 9,350 tons for the 80-kilometer option. So there's a significant difference, or appears to be a significant difference. I'd have to do the calculations to confirm that. So, this is... I'm just going to the next article, which is about the potential new legislation. So there's potential new legislation in Ontario. This is from the Toronto Star. Ford government to restrict new bike lanes and bid to ease gridlock. By Rob Ferguson. The new legislation that hasn't been introduced yet is Reducing Gridlock and Saving You Time Act. There would be a limit on bike lanes, which could appeal to some suburban voters who rely heavily on automobiles to get around. And then this is a Toronto-based article. It says city staff have said bike ridership increases when predicted cycling lanes are installed on roads. And then there's a quote from this article: if the legislation is passed by the Ford's majority government, it has potential to impact Toronto's plan, approved by council this summer, to add 100 kilometers of bike lanes to major routes over the next 3 years as part of efforts to reduce vehicle emissions and fight climate change. So this would have a negative impact on climate emissions goals, putting every municipality further behind. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner said that the provincial proposal is misguided and suggests that the government does not have a credible plan to curb gridlock. There's a quote: "There's literally no evidence that bike infrastructure makes traffic worse." And then Toronto councillor Diane Sachs said that 2 of the cyclist facilities were in University Rosedale, and that Ford is gambling with people's lives. And people have died. And I should say, Peterborough's medical officer of health was also opposed to these potential changes, and is a cyclist as well. So there's a Peterborough connection. Let's see. These are related, so I won't change. Ontario eyes and then there was a CBC article: Ontario eyes borrowing new bike lanes where car lanes would be cut. The legislation could prohibit installation of new bike lanes when lanes of motor vehicles are removed as a result. And then Tim Gray, Executive Director of Environmental Defense, said that the move to restrict bike lanes placement would be deeply regressive and take Ontario in the wrong direction. And then Mike Smetsky, a professor of geography and planning at the University of Toronto, offered a similar assessment. Quote, "That's an extreme measure that will have very little, if any, impact on traffic, but it could have a huge impact on cyclist safety." And then, so there have been deaths. It's not just in Toronto. There was a CTV article, Ottawa News, a cyclist killed in collision north of Kingston, Ontario. And I don't know if the bike lanes would have made a difference, but it's possible that they may have in these cases. So there was one death. This was in July of this year in north of Kingston. And there was and it's not just deaths, people get injured as well. In Peterborough, 2021, there was a cyclist injured in a crash. And then, I don't know if I have time for corporate emissions. Might have to save that for another time. So I'll probably save the rest of the meetings. I'm just yeah, so oh, let's see, where am I? Yeah, so thank you for listening. I'm making a radio show through the facilities of Trent Radio. If you're listening later on YouTube, and I hope that you uh, check it out. And it's a half-hour program. Enjoy the rest of your day.